It's time to take a look at another decade of Rittman Grace Brethren Church history, and this month we are looking at the decade of the 50s. The end of World War II brought thousands of young servicemen back to America to pick up their lives and start new families in new homes with new jobs. With energy never before experienced, American industry expanded to meet peacetime needs. The growth of the consumer economy started as Americans began buying goods not available during the war, which created corporate expansion and more jobs, making the years of the Great Depression a distant memory. There was a large spike in the number of babies born in the late 40s and 50s, and these children became known as the baby boomer generation. And the continued growth of the auto industry and the building of new roads and highways led to the growth of suburban areas as people started to commute from their homes in the suburbs to their jobs in the cities. Despite the growth of prosperity, Americans were feeling a sense of anxiety. The Soviet Union became a major enemy in the Cold War. In 1950, the Korean conflict started, ending in a stalemate in 1953. In 1952, retired Army General Dwight D. Eisenhower was elected president and re-elected in 1956. In 1957, the Soviet Union launched the first man-made Earth satellite, Sputnik, bringing much reaction in the United States, especially concerning the state of math and science education in our public schools. And in 1959, Fidel Castro overthrew the government of Cuba, creating the first communist government in the West. One cannot talk about the 50s without mentioning the growth of television and pop culture. By 1950, 4.4 million families had a TV set. Television revolutionized the way Americans saw themselves and the world around them. It had a profound effect on all aspects of American culture: what we wear, the music we listen to, what we eat, and the news we receive. Many of the stars of Hollywood and radio, like Milton Berle, Jack Benny, Red Skelton, Bob Hope, and Bing Crosby, moved their shows into television and became even bigger stars. Real-life couple Desi Arnaz and Lucille Ball created the biggest hit of the 50s with their comedy I Love Lucy, but the dominant theme show of the 50s was the TV Western. Shows like Hopalong Cassidy, The Lone Ranger, Gene Autry, The Cisco Kid, Gunsmoke, Roy Rogers, Wagon Train, and Wyatt Earp, among others, were so popular that by 1959 there were 26 westerns airing in prime time, and 8 of the top 10 shows in 1959 were westerns. Walt Disney, fresh off the opening of his Disneyland theme park in 1955, scored a major hit with his TV release of Davy Crockett, King of the Wild Frontier, and every kid had to have his very own coonskin cap. The 1950s also saw the development of a new upbeat style of music, called by Cleveland disc jockey Alan Freed as rock and roll, come to dominate pop culture. The theme of the movie Blackboard Jungle, which was Rock Around the Clock by Bill Haley and the Comets, became the first big hit of the rock era. On September 9th, 1956, 80% of the national TV viewing audience watched Elvis Presley make his first of 3 appearances on The Ed Sullivan Show. In addition to having the first satellite, the Soviet Union in 1959 also sent 3 lunar probes to the moon. Other firsts of the 1950s were the nuclear power station, hydrogen bombs, robots, the microchip, solar cells, videotape and video recorders, something we can't do without, the credit card, and an item that fueled the music craze, the transistor radio. And in 1957, the Wham-O company created a mania with the plastic hula hoop, which sold over 25 million in just 4 months. And they followed that in 1959 with something that is still popular today, the Frisbee. In March of 1950, the big news in Rittman was the opening of a new Lawson's store at 18 North Main, the first in Wayne County. It featured Lawson's milk in Lawson's famous gallon jug for 44 cents and Lawson's ice cream for 35 cents a quart. And on May 3rd, 1951, Rittman formally dedicated the new North Street grade building in a ceremony on the hardtop playground east of the school. Willard Howenstein was superintendent of schools and Myron Steiner the principal of North Street. Reverend Charles Ashman Jr. offered the prayer and benediction at the dedication ceremony. Reverend Ashman had been called here to the pastorate to replace Lyle Marvin in 1950. This fine young minister lost no time reorganizing the building committee and presenting the recommendations to the membership. The committee recommended that a basement portion be built onto the present building following the plans of Reverend Ashman and drawn by Bruce Brickle. The membership voted to proceed, so with practically all volunteer labor from the congregation and with many gifts of material, the basement addition was completed in 1953 at the cost of around $10,000. The new addition provided much needed room for an expanding children's ministry and for communion and social purposes. Under Pastor Ashman, the church grew in numbers and in fellowship, but in late 1955, the church was saddened to hear of Reverend Ashman's resignation due to his wife's health, which required a change of climate to Arizona. It was a tearful farewell to brother and sister Ashman, Kenny, Kay, and Carl. In April of 1956, the Reverend Charles Turner was called to the pulpit to replace Brother Ashman. Reverend Turner and his wife June soon won the love of the congregation and the respect of the entire community. Reverend Turner immediately encouraged the church to erase the indebtedness on the basement addition and to complete the building over the basement. The debt was eliminated early in 1957, and on August 7, 1957, the membership voted to build over the basement and to remodel the original church building. The work began under the guidance of Brother Ross Kelbley, who with countless hours of volunteer labor and many love offerings and memorial gifts from members and friends, completed the building, which was joyfully dedicated November 23, 1958. The cost was held to $53,000, which was financed entirely by the local congregation through the issuance of savings certificates.